It was a small hand. That was all the errand boy saw at first. A small, pale hand, protruding from beneath the seat of a third-class railway compartment. January 8, 1914. The North London Railway. A young lad had boarded the train at Mildmay Park, heading back to work after a delivery. He wasn't looking for anything out of the ordinary. He just wanted a seat. He found something else entirely. The hand belonged to a child. A boy, no older than 5 or 6. With long golden curls and a face suffused deep with blood. His lips were bruised. Around his throat were the unmistakable marks of a cord. Someone had strangled this little boy, wrapped him in silence, and slid his body beneath a train seat like he was nothing. And then, they had simply walked away. The train had been shuttling back and forth between Chalk Farm and Broad Street for hours after the murder. Dozens of passengers. Dozens of compartments. And somehow, nobody saw a thing. The boy's name was Willie Starchfield. And more than 100 years later, nobody has ever been convicted of killing him. Willie was just 5 years old. He lived with his mother, Priscilla, in London, the product of a broken marriage. His father, John Starchfield, was a newspaper seller, separated from Priscilla and living in a lodging house across the city. By John's own admission, he hadn't seen his son in 3 weeks. On the afternoon of the murder, Priscilla sent Willie out on a short errand to the local baker. He left around 12:50 in the afternoon. He never came home. The medical evidence placed his death somewhere between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Dr. Bernard Spilsbury, one of the most respected forensic pathologists in Britain, confirmed what investigators already suspected. The boy had been strangled. Deliberately. But the post-mortem revealed something else. In Willie's stomach was 1.5 ounces of partially digested food, containing currants. Someone had given this child cake. Before they killed him. Think about what that means. Willie trusted whoever took him onto that train. He wasn't dragged. He wasn't grabbed off the street in a panic. He went willingly, eating cake, probably not afraid at all. Until he was. When the inquest opened on January 15, the police had a suspect in mind almost immediately, John Starchfield. On the surface, it made sense. A domestic tragedy, an estranged father, a broken family, a child caught in the middle. But the evidence against John was, from the beginning, fragile. The cornerstone of the prosecution's case was a woman named Clara Wood. She claimed she had seen a man leading a small boy by the hand on the afternoon of the murder. The boy, she said, was eating a piece of currant cake. When asked to identify the man in the inquest room, she pointed directly at John Starchfield. John vehemently denied the allegations, insisting they were not true. But the jury believed the witnesses over the broken man. They returned a verdict of willful murder, and John Starchfield was taken into custody. But the case was already starting to crack. Before the trial even began, the prosecution suffered a blow that would prove fatal. One of their essential witnesses attempted to take their own life. But it was only the first of the case's unraveling threads. Because under cross-examination, Clara Wood crumbled. She admitted something damning. Before she identified John in the inquest room, she had seen his photograph in a newspaper. She hadn't come with a clear memory, she came with a face already planted in her head. Even worse, when shown a photo of Willie, the boy she claimed to have seen, she couldn't even positively identify him as the child with the cake. The judge was furious. He turned his anger on the coroner's office, discovering that witness statements had been corrected and revised after the fact. He called it an entire mockery. The judge instructed the jury to return a formal verdict of not guilty. John Starchfield walked free. But John, being innocent, didn't tell the world who was guilty. The police had tunneled so completely on the father that they ignored a terrifying alternative. 2 years before Willie's murder, John Starchfield was a hero. He had tackled a man named Stephen Titus, an Armenian assassin, who had opened fire in a hotel. John brought him down and was publicly celebrated for it. Until the day he died, John believed Willie's death wasn't a domestic dispute. It was revenge. He believed Titus's associates murdered his son to punish the man who put their friend behind bars. It was a theory the police never investigated. The evidence tells a chilling story. Willie was lured, not forced. He was calm, eating cake, walking beside someone he likely knew. The murder was planned. The killer brought a cord, timed the train route, and disposed of the weapon on the tracks. A signalman later recalled seeing a man bending over what he thought was a young girl in a compartment as the train passed his box. He realized later the long golden curls belonged to Willie. That man was never identified. John Starchfield died 2 years later in an infirmary, cleared by a court but haunted by the public's suspicion. The real killer vanished into the fog of a 1914 January afternoon. Willie Starchfield's killer was never found. The boy who trusted a stranger with a piece of cake never got justice. It leaves us with a haunting thought: if it wasn't the father, and the police stopped looking, who killed Willie?